My name is Jeremy Jones, and this is my son Colby and wife Amy. And although there's only three of us here today, we also have a couple of daughters, Mackenzie, who's 16, and Addison, who's nearly 13. We've been attending Fuquay-Varina for about 17 years, and we're asked to share part of our story with you today.
Our story begins in Colby's early high school years as he was struggling with depression and mental health. We knew he needed help and got him into counseling, and were hopeful that this would give him the support he needed at that time. However, we soon learned that Colby had the amazing ability of masking and trying to make others around him think he was okay, when in fact he was struggling very much on the inside.
At around 13, I kind of fell into a sort of slump that just let me lose hope in day-to-day life. At the time, I had no idea why or what caused it. The things that mattered most, like sports, school, video games, any other thing that a 13-year-old loves, were of no interest to me anymore. I wanted to understand, but I really couldn't even begin to describe how I was feeling or what was making me feel this way. Every day kind of seemed like a drag, so I searched for anything to take me away from reality, and I quickly found it.
Yeah, so in 2021, we discovered that Colby had started self-medicating with drugs, and we quickly realized that his substance use was far greater than just kind of teenage experimentation. As a result, he spent the summer between his junior and senior year at a residential rehab center, and then transitioned into a teenage enthusiastic sobriety program in Cary upon his return home. This was during his senior year of high school, and what was supposed to be an exciting time in his life. Instead, he spent a lot of his days in counseling and was surrounded by a community of supportive teenagers who were also struggling with mental health and addiction.
As a family, we were impacted more than we could have ever imagined. We all experience a range of emotions, including grief, anger, worry, fear, shame, and resentment, just to name a few. The disease of addiction nearly tore our family apart. Our daughters, Mackenzie and Addie, were also in the midst of all the household tension. Their day-to-day lives were disrupted, and at times they felt that their needs were not as important due to all the focus that was being placed on Colby.
And so where was God in all of this? How and why was this happening to us? These are a few of the questions that we ask ourselves. And have you ever found yourself asking these same questions when you're in a tough season of life? It took some time as a result of that for us to begin to turn our situation totally over to God, because we were busy trying to control it ourselves. We finally realized that Colby's healing and our family's survival was in God's hands, and we needed to trust and just let God.
Yeah, for the longest time, I could not even feel the presence of God. From the day I walked into residential treatment, they talked about God, and I absolutely despised the idea of having to trust my life in anyone else's hands but my own. I put a wall of pride up, and for years I thought that I knew it all, thought that I needed nobody but myself and the substances I took to, feel fulfilled. But the more I used and the more I listened to myself, the more I allowed substances to be a part of my life. The more life around me just kind of seemed to fall apart. I felt shameful, hopeless, remorseful for everything that I did. The night of New Year's Eve of 2022 changed everything for me, though. That night was my last relapse, and I decided to call my sister Mackenzie. Her brutal honesty changed something inside me that night. Finally, my wall of pride had been lowered. I woke up the next morning with something I had not had in years. It was hope. Ever since that night, I've been giving my life and actions over to God one day at a time. God's redemption has been working through me since that night. The forgiveness of others, the old friendships renewed, new friendships created, and overall community that surrounds me keeps me progressing on my journey. Although during the past 3 years, God has given me many great blessings, the best of all is the ability to forgive myself and the opportunity at a new life walking through his footsteps. God has done for me what I could not do for myself. Through every hardship and celebration, he was there. When I was heartbroken and weak, he was closest to me. Now I remind myself to surrender on a daily basis, because the things God can do for me go way beyond what I'm capable of doing for myself. God could or would if he were sought.
God was answering our prayers by putting people in Colby's path that allowed him to open his eyes and to see God in his day-to-day life. Through prayer, we began to see the ways in which God was working in our family as well. We found ourselves saying yes to more opportunities where God was nudging us, and began noticing positive steps in Colby's recovery and our family's overall peace. Philippians 4:7 says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your request to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." We certainly have seen God work in miracles within Colby and our family through forgiveness, understanding, and grace.
For a while, we kept this side of our story very private, fearing judgment for others. We put self-imposed pressure on ourselves to keep, the perfect Christian image. As imperfect humans, we viewed our brokenness as shameful. But God has revealed to us through this journey that He can take broken things and remake them into something even better and something that He can use for His glory. Psalm 107 verse 2 says, as redeemed individuals, we have a responsibility to share the good news of God's redemption with others. And that's part of what we're trying to do today. We are by no means at the finish line, whatever that is. And we are really proud of the steps that Colby continues to take one day at a time in his recovery. As a family, we have hope, peace, and gratitude for the day, and that to us is redemption from God.